Once people are educated, once the laws change, and there's kind of this democratized access, then we've got to do a good job educating people on how to be a good investor. And you've done a bunch around mental models for investors in threads on Twitter and elsewhere. Kind of talk through a little bit how you think about those mental models. Are there any favorites that you have? And kind of why are those so important to somebody who wants to be an investor?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, mental models are a fancy term that people like to use. And I've been someone that's propagated this as well, but basically it's just ways to think about the world. What ways to go think about different problems that you're encountering, and they don't need to be investing problems. You can use mental models for anything that's in your life, relationships, whatever it might be. But I think mental models are important because they allow you to simplify and solve complex problems that you're encountering. So first principles is one of my favorite mental models. You hear about it a lot, read about it a lot. No one really understands it from what I found. I wrote a thread on it that was really popular because I think a lot of people hear first principles, they say first principles, and they don't know what the hell it means. But basically, this is the idea that you need to ground things in foundational truths. So stop accepting that's just the way it's always been done, or just because. Like if you are answering a question for someone and you find yourself frustrated and you want to react by saying, because I said so, or because that's the way we do it, that's usually a sign that your foundational assumptions are not grounded in a real truth that you've proven. So like Elon Musk is the best example of this with SpaceX. And people have talked about this in the past. It was written about in his book. Rockets were really expensive, and that was a huge issue for him creating this future where you could go to Mars and create a society on Mars. And so he grounded his solution to that problem in first principles. He went and looked at what were the material costs of making a rocket and found out that actually the individual materials to construct a rocket collectively were way less expensive than the cost of a rocket on the open market. And so he built one himself. And, fast forward 10 plus years and you have this incredible progress being made at SpaceX. What they're doing with Starlink, by the way, is otherworldly and is going to be incredible in terms of bringing access to the internet, Wi-Fi technology to people around the world that are in city areas that have coverage. But just an amazing amount of progress that was all based in this idea of first principles thinking. Second order thinking is the other big one for me that I think about a lot. It's just this idea of thinking deeper, going beyond the first order effects of something. It's very easy to see the rock hit the pond and the first little ripple or splash that comes from it. It's much more difficult to think through, okay, what happens after that? And then what? And then what? And how does that all play out? COVID was a great example of that and how that played into our world. The first order thinker would have seen COVID hitting and said, oh man, the country is going to shut down. I'm going to sell all of my money out of the markets. I'm going to, buy put options on the market. Because the markets are going to crash. The second order thinker might have thought, wow, the markets are going to crash because the economy is going to shut down. People are going to be stuck at home and have to work from home. So maybe Zoom's a good buy because people are going to be sitting on video chats all day. And here we are. But that's kind of this idea of like, think deeper, go beyond just the surface level discussion and the surface level thinking that exists and think a bit deeper. So there's hundreds of mental models. Farnham Street does a great job. Shane Parrish over there does an incredible job laying a lot of this out. I've seen James Clear talking about these things online. There's a bunch of resources. I write threads on some of this stuff. But it's really important, and you'll start seeing the world differently, and you'll start seeing these things everywhere, and it will help you, I can guarantee it, make decisions in real time about the world around you, about investments, about business decisions, your own writing, whatever it might be. And so it's worth digging into.
How do you think people can get better at implementing mental models in their daily life, right? They can read about it. Is that the best way, just to be aware of them and therefore start to apply them? Or are there other things that you found to be valuable in terms of the implementation or the usage of mental models?
Yeah, I think it's a really important point. And one thing I try to do with all of my writing is at the end of it, talk about how you can actually implement it into your kind of daily life, whether it's investing or your business, whatever it might be. The first step is definitely understanding what it is. I find personally, and you should tell me if you don't, I personally find that when I've learned something new, I am prone to see it in action in the real world, whatever it might be. And so for me, when I first read about first principles, I found myself taking forever to answer every question because I was trying to ground everything in first principles. And that's not replicable, and you can't go do that the rest of your life. You'll drive yourself nuts. But it's an interesting case study of when you've learned something new, you try to go apply it. Now you've applied it a couple times, and now you know when to use it and when not to. You're starting to build this repetition around it so that you've kind of greased the wheels. And I think that that's the most powerful thing is you learn it and then try to see it, in your daily life around you a little bit. It's basically, it's no different than learning a new skill. You learn how to swing a golf club and then you want to go practice it a couple times and now you're better at swinging it, or baseball or sports, whatever it might be. It's the same way with anything mental, any decision-making frameworks. You need to put them into action in order to realize the benefits.